Now we start from the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the war in Gaza will end once the second phase of the ongoing truce, which involves the disarming of Hamas, is completed. Netanyahu has said that Phase B of the truce involves the disarming of Hamas and the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, following the stripping of Hamas of its weapons, and he has said that the war will only end when Phase B is successfully completed. This comes as Hamas leader Mohammad Nazal had earlier stated that disarmament was a complex issue and that he cannot commit to the group disarming. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister's office had earlier stated that Hamas needed to disarm under any circumstance and that Hamas was running out of time. The office had also stated that Hamas needed to adhere to the 20-point plan and release bodies of all remaining hostages. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Aaron Levarko. He's an Israeli journalist, joins us live from Netanya. Thank you very much, Aaron, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, what's going on with this peace plan? Do we see a scope of hope in this peace deal holding, the first phase? And do you think when will we be able to enter the second phase? What's your analysis?
Well, these are big questions and testing times. Look, the first steps were successful. We got all of the living captives back returned. A massive decision for Hamas to do that. What I'm reading just this morning is that reports are saying they were just tired of holding on to these captives. I don't know if that's the whole picture, but that's what I'm reading, because it does seem uncharacteristic of Hamas to make a decision like that. They've given up all of their leverage, really. So, number one. Number two, Israel handed over approximately 2,000 prisoners, including 250 cold-blooded murderers that were put in prison because of that. So Hamas, in a way, feel like they have been rearmed with these 2,000 prisoners that are out on the streets. That has given them an injection of energy, of motivation. So they are reneging what they agreed. As Donald Trump said, they agreed that they will disarm and they will lay down their weapons. That's what they've agreed. They've reneged. Now, this morning, one of their spokesmen said, we will agree to a ceasefire, maybe between 3 to 5 years. So, but they said, we will not disarm. Now, what is that saying? They are being totally defiant of what was agreed upon, of what President Donald Trump said, along with the backing of all the nations who joined in and who signed, including the funders of Hamas. So this is a pretty serious decision by Hamas, and I think we all know what's going to be the outcome if they continue to follow this policy. In the meantime, there is a lot of civil unrest inside of the Gaza Strip. A lot of tribal factions have been actually working with the Israeli forces, and now Hamas are trying to exact revenge on some of those people. We saw a few days ago live recordings of a number of them being shot in the head dead. A number of women and families are reporting that they don't know where members of their families are. They're in detention by Hamas, and a number of people have fled. No one knows where they've gone out of fear of being killed. So there's definitely, you use the word peace. This peace is being tested, and it's going to take some time. It's going to take at least a month, 3 months, really, I think, for all these tribal infightings in the Gaza Strip. I think they've got to sort that out. They've got to get their anger out, their revenge, their vengeance, and they're going to do that. But it'll be interesting to see how Donald Trump and Israel's defense forces respond. They have to be tactical. Are they going to wait until the civil unrest calms down, or are they going to act fast? Donald Trump seems to be giving strong messages. You know, I'm running out of time. We warned you. You promised, but you're reneging. Time will tell.
And Aaron, how realistic is the disarmament of Hamas? As you've also mentioned, you know, that some of the prisoners or people who were released might be going back or could go join Hamas, as you've shared. And also thinking about their weapons, how much do they have, knowing that there's no corridor as long as we know this. How are they keeping on, like, with their continuation of these armament and, you know, all these weapons that they still have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's the reason why the Rafah border crossing is closed, and it will not be open until agreements have been reached, promises have been fulfilled. And this is one of the military strategies that a lot of people in the press, journalists, who look at it only from a political perspective. You've got to understand the military aspect. Siege warfare is an ancient form of warfare, and that's what we've been doing, putting pressure on our enemies and trying to not through food, but through weapons, starving them of weapons. And I don't know exactly how much weapons they've got. You know, with all these hundreds of miles of tunnels under the ground, they've obviously got some there. There has been smuggling through Egypt. There has been funding from a number of countries, but that hopefully has stopped. So it is a countdown. It is a matter of time. We don't know how long that's going to be. But how realistic is it going to be that they're going to lay down their arms? In my opinion, it's not going to happen. I think that, you know, especially with the refueling of fighters on the ground, the prisoners being released, and what will Hamas gain if they do lay down their arms? They may get a free passage to Qatar or Turkey or Egypt. I don't think Egypt, but is that going to help their cause? I don't think so. So I don't think it's realistic. Maybe at the very, very end, we might see something, but for now, doesn't look hopeful.
Thank you, Aaron, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now we stay on this topic. A convoy carrying the bodies of 2 deceased Israeli hostages have arrived at the National Institute of Forensic Medicine in Tel Aviv. Israel has stated that it has received 2 more hostage bodies on Saturday, October 18th, where 12 out of 28 bodies have been handed over to Israel under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire and hostage deal agreed between Israel and Hamas last week. Now, the war has caused a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, with nearly all inhabitants driven from their homes. A global hunger monitor confirmed that famine and health authorities overwhelmed. The dispute over the return of bodies and the delivery of crucial humanitarian aid highlights the ceasefire's fragility and could threaten U.S. President Trump's 20-point peace plan. Now, for this discussion, we go back to Aaron Levarko. He's an Israeli journalist, joins us live from Netanya. Thank you, Aaron, for staying with us. Now, as you were saying, you know how Hamas has gotten more powerful or this boosted with all this what's happened in the past. So what do you think are the potential political and humanitarian consequences if phase B of the truce were to take forever? How, you know, as you've mentioned, it's very, very challenging to see demilitarization of Hamas happening.
Look, the Middle East is such a difficult place to interpret and to predict. One of the ways that Donald Trump got this so-called peace plan on the table is he put his arm around the Turks, the Qataris, the Egyptians. They are and have been the main funders of Hamas and supporters. He put his arms around them. And the reason why he did that is because he knows very well that they are the main funders. But those three nations, America, are also in political and economic deals. And so, in a way, Trump was using leverage politically, economically, trade, and he got those three countries and he put pressure on those countries. And they seem to be the ones that coerced Hamas into agreeing. It's still, for me, it's still hard to believe that they agreed to release our hostages, but they did. So going back to your question, I think that this is, from a political perspective, I think Donald Trump has got to, once again, go back to these nations and see what they can do. Now, there was word a few days after the peace was made that these nations were going to send delegates inside of Gaza. But there were big question marks on the motives of these three nations. What were they going to do once they got inside of the Gaza Strip? And that's another discussion. But so from a political perspective, I don't think, Trump can give as many warnings as he wants. And it just seems that Hamas they're not afraid of him. So it may end up, rather than a political solution, a military solution. And that's what Donald Trump warned. He said, we're giving you a chance. We're giving you an open door. Here it is. If they don't take it, he made it very clear that it could take military action, which will lead to bloodshed. No one wants that, certainly not on our side. I don't think the Americans want it. The Americans don't want to send any of their forces in. But sadly to say, I think that's where we're heading. But you know what? Trump did a brilliant move by pulling off this peace plan. Let's see what else he can pull off. But I'm not too optimistic he's going to be able to. Hamas have hardened their hearts, and they're pretty adamant that they're not going to lay down their weapons unless something that you referred to before, maybe they're going to run out of weapons. And once that happens, and again, this is the old strategy of siege warfare. It can force your enemies to either take their own lives, go down with the sinking ship, or surrender. And once again, we're giving them an opportunity, a free passage to Qatar, to Turkey, maybe to Egypt. It's their choice.
Yes, Aaron, and thank you very much for staying with us and sharing that insight as an Israeli journalist from Netanyahu. Now, we stay on this topic. Hundreds of Israelis have gathered outside the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's residence in Jerusalem to protect and demand the return of missing hostages. The crowd held signs, waved flags, and expressed grief and anger as they chanted, "Bring them home now," repeatedly, as Israeli officials called out each of the 18 names of the deceased hostages who still remain missing. The demonstrators responded with loud, emotional cries, highlighting the deep pain and frustration of families and the community. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt will remain closed until further notice. He has further added that the reopening of the crossing will depend on Hamas and its handling over the remains of deceased Israeli hostages. This comes after the Palestinian embassy in Egypt announced that the Rafah crossing would reopen on Monday to allow Gazans residing in Egypt to return to the enclave. However, aid trucks are reportedly seen lined up on the Egyptian side of Rafah today morning, trying to enter Gaza Strip. So far, Israel has received 12 of the 28 deceased hostages under this agreement, and Palestinian authorities warned that the closure of Rafah delays the search and recovery of additional remains. Now, Hamas has criticized Netanyahu's decision as a violation of the ceasefire, while Israel continues to press for timely handover of hostage bodies. In the meantime, Gazans continue to mourn the bodies returned by Israel, including 9 Palestinians in the Bureij camp in central Gaza. According to the Hamas-run health ministry, Israel has handed over a total of 135 Palestinian bodies under the ceasefire deal brokered by US.